A few winters ago, I was driving alone, trying to reach Seattle before midnight. I hadn't booked a hotel ahead of time. I usually just find a place when I get tired. But that day, a heavy snowstorm was moving through the area. I kept getting weather alerts on my phone, but I figured if I took it slow, I'd be fine. Around 5 p.m., the snow started coming down thick and fast. The highway emptied out until it was just me, creeping along through whiteout conditions. When the sun set, the storm got even worse. My car began to feel unsteady, and I realized I needed to get off the road. The nearest towns were too far, and the only place nearby was a small cabin rental I found online. It wasn't a chain, just a private listing with a couple of blurry exterior photos. It was available that night, so I booked it on my phone and followed the directions down a narrow, icy gravel driveway. The cabin was tiny, about the size of a studio apartment. I let myself in with the lockbox code. The place felt abandoned. Dust on every surface, stale air, and barely any light. There was no kitchen, just a bed, a chair, and a small wood stove in the corner. The only reason I stayed was because the storm outside was getting even worse. I dropped my bag, got the stove going, and tried to relax. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I remember is waking up to a faint, repetitive sound. It took me a minute to realize it was my car alarm, muffled by the wind and snow. I threw on my coat and boots and rushed outside. The blizzard was so thick I could barely see my car, but the headlights were flashing and the alarm was blaring. I kept pressing the key fob, but nothing happened. When I finally reached the car, I noticed something strange. The driver's door was closed, but there was a dusting of snow on the front seat, as if the door had been open for a few minutes. That's when I saw him. A silhouette at the edge of the trees, maybe 10 feet away. I froze. He didn't move, just stood there, almost blending into the whiteout. I tried to shout, but my voice caught in my throat. I bolted back to the cabin, slammed the door, and locked it. My heart was pounding. I peeked out the window, but the snow was coming down so hard I couldn't see anything. I tried calling 911, but the signal was weak and the call kept dropping. I tried several times, but never got more than a few words out before the line cut. Then my car alarm started up again. I just stood there, paralyzed, listening to the wind and the alarm, imagining every possible scenario. Was he trying to disable my car? Trap me here? I didn't know. After a few minutes, the alarm stopped. Then, through the swirling snow, I saw the man's shape moving toward the cabin. I ducked away from the window. He walked up onto the porch, his footsteps crunching on the wood. He knocked, slow and steady, like he knew I couldn't go anywhere. I held my breath and stayed perfectly still. He knocked again. Then I heard him move along the porch to the side of the cabin. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to stay out of sight. I could hear him humming, a low, tuneless sound as he circled the cabin. Every so often, he'd knock on a window, but he never said a word. Eventually, the humming faded and everything went silent except for the storm. I waited, barely breathing, until finally, blue and red lights appeared through the snow. An officer knocked on the door. They'd gotten my dropped calls and sent someone to check on me. The man was gone, just footprints circling the cabin and leading off into the woods. No car, no sign of him. He hadn't taken anything, hadn't tried to break in. I lefted the officer and never looked back. I still have no idea what he wanted or why he was out there in the middle of a blizzard. Last winter, my friend Adam invited me to his family's cabin in the mountains. His parents usually went every year, but this time it was just the two of us. The cabin wasn't rustic. It was more like a modern house tucked away in the woods. We arrived around noon, spent some time figuring out the heating and lights, and called his parents a couple of times to get the place up and running. The first night we were both exhausted from the drive, so we just went to bed early. By morning, the cabin was buried under half a foot of snow, and it was still coming down. We spent the day inside, watching TV and talking, just enjoying the quiet. That night, we settled in with some beers and a football game. Sometime during the second half, both of us heard a sharp cough from outside, right by the front door. We looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. No one should be out here. Adam shrugged it off, saying it was probably just the wind or maybe an animal. I checked the porch, but it was empty. We joked about it and moved on. After the game, Adam went to bed, and I decided to sleep on the couch by the fireplace. The cabin was drafty, and the fireplace made it feel a little less cold. I wrapped up in a blanket and drifted off. I woke up later to Adam whispering my name from the hallway. He looked unsettled. He asked if I'd gone outside. I told him I'd been asleep on the couch the whole time. He swore he'd heard the front door open and close, but when he checked, it was still locked. I tried to reassure him, blaming the noises on the old cabin settling. He went back to bed, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. I lay there, listening to the wind, trying to convince myself it was nothing. After a while, I sat up, and that's when I noticed the front door was cracked open, letting in a blast of cold air. I knew Adam had checked it. I closed it, locked it again, and stood there for a minute, trying to process what was happening. Then a heavy thump hit the side of the cabin. I froze. Another thump, louder this time. Adam came out of his room, asking if I'd heard it too. The noise kept coming, moving along the walls, like someone or something was circling the cabin, pounding on the wood. We checked all the windows, but couldn't see anything in the darkness and snow. The pounding would stop for a while, then start up again, always in a different spot. It went on for hours, off and on, until just before dawn. When the sun finally came up, we grabbed kitchen knives and went outside to look. The snow was deep, and all around the cabin, the wood was dented and scratched, but not broken. It didn't look like someone trying to get in, just marking the place. We didn't see any footprints, just the damage. We packed up and left as soon as the road was clear. I still don't know what was out there that night, but it felt like a warning, like we weren't supposed to be there. I live out in the country, about 20 minutes from the nearest town, surrounded by empty fields. One night, just after New Year's, a snowstorm rolled in while I was at work. I left early, wanting to get home before the roads got worse. When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed fresh tire tracks in the snow leading right up to my house. No car was there, so I figured someone had gotten lost and turned around. I went inside, made dinner, and settled in for the night. About an hour later, I noticed a glare through the blinds. I peeked out and saw a car parked in my driveway, headlights blazing. It just sat there, engine running for several minutes. I watched from the window, tense, until the car finally backed out and drove away. It didn't feel like an accident. My house is pretty far off the main road, and with the storm, it would be hard to mistake it for somewhere else. I tried to shrug it off, but I kept glancing out the window every few minutes. Eventually, I closed the blinds and went to bed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Around 2 a.m., I woke up suddenly. The wind was howling, rattling the windows, but the house felt different, like the air had changed. I got up to check the storm and looked out my bedroom window. There, halfway down my driveway, was the same car, now covered in a thin layer of snow. It had been there for a while. My heart was pounding. I turned away from the window, planning to check the locks, and that's when I saw a shadow move under my bedroom door. Someone was in the hallway. I realized, with a sick feeling, that he must have gotten inside while I was asleep. I grabbed my phone and quietly texted 911, not daring to make a sound. The dispatcher replied right away, telling me to stay hidden and that officers were on their way. For what felt like forever, I listened to the quiet footsteps pacing back and forth outside my door. Every so often, the shadow would shift, like he was waiting for me to come out. Finally, I saw the flash of police lights through the window. The footsteps rushed toward the front of the house, but it was too late. The officers caught him as he tried to escape. Later, I learned he'd been watching me for weeks. They found photos of me in his car, taken from the fields at night, and a bag of things I don't even want to think about. I'd never seen him before. I still don't know why he chose me, but I'm grateful I woke up when I did. I haven't slept the same since.